Hello everyone and welcome to one of the best games from round 8 that I've decided to cover. It is Andrey Esipenko versus Vincent Keymer, both of them so far without a loss, and it's already round 8, so it's very commendable. And the game itself is incredibly complicated, and what's most incredible about it is that Esipenko for the first 15 moves spent 0 time on the clock. He played all of his moves instantly, when in fact it was Vincent who chose very rare lines. But for some reason, either Esipenko really knew what Vincent will prepare for this game, or he's just so well versed and he knows everything that he was able to play so quickly. So let's check it out. Esipenko has the white pieces and he opens with knight to f3. He goes for the A13 opening. We have knight to f6 and now pawn to c4. Okay, transposing into the English. For those of you who like to see photos, here's even a photo of them playing. There you have it. Very nice. Also in the background you can see Vladimir Fedosev playing his game against Pretke. The two of them have drawn their game. But getting back to this game, we have pawn to e6 and now pawn to g3. Countering the Agincourt defense by fianchettoing the light square bishop, we have d5, bishop to g2, and now standard moves here are bishop to e7 and d captures on c4. Vincent goes for pawn to d4. Okay, not incredibly rare, it's only the 5th most popular continuation. We have castles, and now almost exclusively c5 is played here, but Vincent goes for knight to c6. And okay, pawn to e3, we have pawn to e5, e captures on d4, and now Vincent plays pawn to e4, advances the pawn, attacks the knight, and again, it has been reached. Knight to g5 has been played here. It's the only move that's ever been played here. It is the top move recommended by the engine, but Esipenko plays pawn to d5, and it is now, as of move 8, that we have a completely new game. Now, I was very much interested in this position, so I, of course, allowed the engine to crunch the numbers, and the engine says, as the engine always does, that the position is 0.00, or maybe black will be even slightly better. So it's very strange that Esipenko chooses such a line, but not really, as Vincent is a human being, so he might make a mistake. So okay, e captures on f3. Now you can't capture the knight, as pawn captures bishop on g2, so you have to play queen captures on f3, and now knight to e5, attacking Andrey's queen. We have rook to e1, pinning the knight, and now you can't play just anything here, because d4 is coming and you're gonna have to give the piece back. So if you play something like knight d7, then d4 is very strong, d captures on e5 is coming, and the white's position will just be incredible. Also, if you try something like bishop to e7, you just try giving back the piece. Again, it's not great, just captures, king goes to castles, and now pawn to d4. Again, white's position is absolutely incredible here. But queen to e7, the move Vincent played, that is the move you have to find, because now the threat is queen captures on f3, the knight is no longer pinned. So Andrey goes back, queen to d1, and now bishop to g4, piling up on the white queen. Pawn to f3, and now bishop captures on f3. Idea being, of course, that if bishop captures, knight captures comes with check, and if you capture, then queen captures on e1 happens. So after bishop captures on f3, queen to a4 with check, and this is now the real question. What does Vincent play here? All of the moves here were instantly played by Andrey, and Vincent already burned half of his time pretty much. And the point is, if you block with the knight, let's say you go knight f to d7, then d4 comes, and then let's say you castle queenside. The problem is also the a7 pawn is undefended. So let's say you go knight to c3, queen to f6 unpinning, so now you have to capture back the piece, and let's say bishop to c5 check to defend the a7 pawn, bishop to e3, bishop captures on e3, rook captures, queen to b6 will put pressure on the rook on e3, let's say rook a to e1, and now finally knight will capture on e5. But now you'll play queen to b3, and at the end of this line, white will maybe be slightly better, nothing spectacular. Let's say bishop captures, queen captures on b6, a captures, rook captures on e5, and now the bishop escapes, and now you lift the rook over to e7, upgrading it to a pig. So rook to d7 defends the pawn, and so on. You play this game, equal material. Black has a doubled b pawn, it's a bishop against a knight, so maybe white slightly better, but nothing to count on. So it's possible, but Vincent goes the other way. He plays king to d8. You could also maybe block first, but king to d8 will have to be played. Even if you block with the queen and give up the knight with check, king to d8 will have to be played. So Vincent starts with that, and now we have pawn to d4. Finally, Andrey goes after the knight, bishop captures on g2, rook captures on e5, attacks the queen, and now queen to d7. This is how Vincent plays it out, and now he will also win the exchange, because if the queen moves, then the bishop just escapes via the h3 square. So you have to trade here. Queen captures on d7, knight captures, attacks the rook on e5, and once now you can't move the rook, the bishop again escapes, so king captures on g2, knight captures on e5, and d captures on e5. And this is the position that Esipenko got out of the opening, and it's a very strange one. Look at this. Total and complete undevelopment by black and by white. So none of the pieces are in the game, and white has this massive center. So definitely a position you don't encounter on a daily basis. And Vincent says, all right, now it's time to undermine that strong center. And also, if you count the pieces, Vincent is just up the exchange. He has 2 rooks and a bishop, whereas Andrey has a rook, knight, and bishop. So okay, he tries to undermine the pawn chain, f6, pawn to e6. We have pawn to c6, and now bishop to f4. C captures on d5, and the rook to c8. Slowly but surely developing his pieces, knight to c3, and bishop to b4. We have knight to e4, now with control over the d6 square. So one thing you don't want to allow is the pawn to land on d6. If the pawn lands on d6, then you know it's pretty much over. Maybe you can defend it, but it's gonna be hell. So rook to c4, now attacking the knight, and here we have king to f3, just defending the knight. And now the only way to keep playing this is king to e7 to stop pawn to d6. But Vincent tried rook to d4, as this also gives him control over the d6 square, but it also allows Andrey to just win the game on the spot. But it's a very difficult move to spot, and well, it's not very difficult if you know what move wins the game pretty much every game. So I've already said too much. Feel free to pause the video and win the game for Andrey Esipenko while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on spotting this inevitable idea. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it is of course pawn to b4, but not right away. First we have to prepare it. It's pawn to a3. Pawn to a3, as it allows us to play pawn to b4. But not only that, what do you do with the bishop? The problem is you cannot go here. This is guarded by the bishop and by the knight. If you go to e7, then d6 comes with tempo, so you cannot allow that. Then the bishop moves, then e7 comes with tempo. You cannot go to f8, because then again d6 comes with tempo, as you are threatening e7 with check to win material. So what can you do? If you play bishop to a5, then the problem is knight to d6. Threatening this fork, this will fork the king and the rook. Threatening this fork, this will threaten the rook and the bishop. And of course, if you avoid both of these forks with king to e7, then you run into a third fork with knight to f5 check, and you blunder the rook. So how can you play this? It's very, very hard, if not impossible. Vincent tries rook to d3 check. This will avoid the third fork that we've just covered in this hypothetical line. King to g2, and now bishop to a5. And okay, knight to d6 still. King to e7, knight to f5 with check. Now Andrey will repeat the position once. King to d8, knight to d6 check, king e7, knight to f5 check, king to d8, and now pawn to d6. Now, well, d7 is a threat, e7 is a threat. What can Vincent play here? Vincent plays pawn to g5 to kick away the bishop from defending the pawn and from such a strong diagonal. Bishop to e3 now attacks a7, and now he plays rook to e8, puts pressure on the e6 pawn, and sort of invites this pawn to come forward. And it's better to have... when you're defending and your opponent has a dark square bishop, it's better to force his pawns on dark squares, because if you have pawns on light squares and you have a dark square bishop to operate in between them, it will be a lot more dangerous. So e7 check, king to d7, and now bishop captures on a7. And now, remember when I said pawn to b4 was the winning idea, but you have to prepare it with pawn to a3 first? Well, this is the reason why. Rook captures on d6, giving back the exchange. Knight captures, we have king captures, and it seems you're gonna lose the e7 pawn as well, but no, now comes pawn to b4. that's the good stuff. And also here a few moves ago, you probably were thinking after bishop captures on a7, can you trap the bishop? No, you can't, because b4 traps the black bishop on a5. So here b4 attacks the bishop, bishop to c7, and now bishop to c5 check defends the d7 pawn. So you have to play a3 in order to be able to play pawn to b4 in order to be able to give a check and defend the pawn on e7. That's how chess works most of the time. So king to c6, we have rook to c1 now, threatening all sorts of discoveries, king to d1, and now bishop to d4, offering your own bishop for the bishop on c7, and it's not great. Even if you try bishop captures on g3, white will just play bishop captures on f6, so you don't really gain anything by that. And if you play king captures and just trade bishops, then b5, okay, you sort of stop the expansion of the queenside pawns, but now after king f3 and king to d5, you will run into a check, and the b5 pawn falls, then the a and b pawn will run forward freely. So rook captures on e7, it's the best way to go. Bishop captures on f6, and now rook to f7. We have rook to c5 with check, king to e4, and now bishop captures on g5. So now you are up 2 pawns, and well, it's going to be very, very hard to hold. Bishop to b6 attacks the rook, rook b5. We have bishop to d4, now bishop to d8, trying to trade off the remaining piece with bishop to b6. So rook to d7, and now bishop to b6. Of course, you have to avoid the trade. You are down 2 pawns, so all trades favor the side with more material. King to h3, now pawn to h5. We have rook to c5, and now rook to d3, going after the a3 pawn, but just bishop to c7. So you don't really gain anything, because if you trade here and capture on a3, rook captures on b7, and again you're up 2 pawns, and you have a passed b pawn, you're just going to push it to victory. Also, you're probably going to win the h5 pawn, so depending on how black plays, you will win this way or the other. So bishop to d4 attacks the rook, now comes rook captures on h5, and first rook to c3, attacking the bishop on c7, bishop to d6, and only now Vincent grabs the a3 pawn. We have bishop to c5, trying to trade off the remaining material, bishop to e5, of course Vincent cannot afford this, rook to h7, and pawn to b5, but you cannot defend it forever. Rook b7, king to f3, and now rook captures on b5. Here Vincent played rook to a1, maybe hoping for some king to h4, so maybe the rook goes behind the pawn, tries to attack it, but it doesn't really work. Here rook to a5 was played, and he was in this position on move 55 that Vincent Keymer resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. You're simply down too much material, your opponent has 3 pawns, you have 0, and okay, you could play something like rook h1, let's say, but then you kick away the black king, king to e4, you go rook b3, you start advancing your passed b pawn, and that's pretty much it. Slowly but surely, white will definitely win this. When you're up 3 pawns, it's just too much of a difference to even try something. So yeah, after rook to a5, Keymer resigned, and another excellent victory for Andrey Esipenko, who after 8 rounds of this year's FIDE Grand Swiss still remains undefeated. These are the standings for the moment, so you can see that 4 players are on 6 out of 8, and they are Andrey Esipenko, Vidit Gujrati, Fabiano Caruana, and Bogdan Daniel Deac. So we'll see what happens in round 9. Some of the pairings from round 9, if you guys are interested, let me just check real quickly. Some of the pairings from round 9 who will meet who on the top boards. So Fabiano Caruana will face Bogdan Daniel Deac, as they are also the leaders, and Esipenko will face the other leader, Vidit Gujrati. So those are the 4 leaders, and they will face each other. Then you have Nakamura Cheparinov, Fedosev Erigaisi, Maksudlu Sarana, Kuzubov Sevian, Bakro Pretke, Wojtaszek Aronyan, Sindaro Vasher Lagrav, and Keymer will be facing Nihal Sarin. So yeah, very nice done. Also, Maksudlu really gaining a lot of rating points. He's already up to world number 14 on the live ratings list. So you know, if he does really well, he might even be, yeah, okay. And he will have to win like maybe 10 more points or to enter the world top 10. But yeah, if he does really well, he might be able to do it. So yeah, that's the game. Really hope you guys enjoyed it, and a bit of extra info on the standings and on the ratings. Hope you enjoyed that as well. I would like to thank Chess Beats League, Romain Manini, Sam's Giant Torres Farm, Marvin Sparrow, and Gerhard Henkelmann for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions, but mostly covering the FIDE Grand Swiss until it finishes. So thank you all, I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.